I will break down these 30 intermediate level blues licks in context. Yes, in context. What I mean by that, we will look at the notes of the lick, the pentatonic position that I'm using for structure, and also what chord that we're playing the lick over. This is so important in really gaining knowledge of this fretboard. And these licks are interchangeable. You can pick the ones that you like and create your own solos. This is about improvising and having fun on the guitar. I will leave the backing track link in the description. This is a great track to learn these blues licks. Let's go. All right, licks 1 and 2 are over the E7 chord, and using this first position open E minor pentatonic, really looking at that structure and using this little extension here. So lick number 1, slight bend in the 3rd fret of the E string, open E, 3rd fret of the B string, then open B, full bend in the 3rd fret, and then open E. The second one over the E chord also, E7. So using that little extension, sliding from 2 to 4 on the G string, hitting 3 on the B, open E. Then pulling down from this blue note here in the 3rd fret of the G string to the 2nd fret 3 times. After the first time, you just hesitate, and then 2 consecutive. All together. Licks 1 and 2 over the E7 chord. Still looking at the structure of the E minor pentatonic here, but we're hitting a few major notes. So open B string and hammering on to the 2nd fret. Open E. Slight bend in the 3rd fret of the E string. And then hitting the 5th fret on the B string. And then, so you're pulling off, you're hitting the E, 5th fret of the B string, pulling off to 3, and then pulling off to the open. Pretty quick though. Not an easy thing to do, but sounds bluesy. The second one going from the A7 to back to the E7. Just throwing that major note in there. So 3, open, 3, open, 2 on the G, 1 on the G, 2 on the D string. And then we're back to the E7. Lick number 5 is over the B7 chord. Just a chromatic walk to the notes in the chord. So open A, 1, 2 on the A string. And then on the D string, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then hitting the B note here in the 4th fret of the G string. This all just goes around the B7 chord. Going to the A7 chord for one measure. kind of hugging that major sound there, extending up to a major pentatonic box. Really focused on that E note there. So sliding up to 6 on the G string, hitting 5 on the B string, the E note, full bend and release on 7 of the B string, then hammer on and pull off 5 to 7. And then back to the 6 on the G, back to that root in the 5th fret of the B string. Now we're going back to the turnaround, the E7 to B7, before the progression starts over, and we're doing a simple walk down. So using the same structure here as we walk down, 5 on the A, 4 on the G string. You can do this with some hybrid picking here, or just hitting them one at a time, picking them, walk down. And as you go to the E here, 2 on the A string, hammering on from open G to the 1st fret, hitting 2 on the D string, and then walking up to the B. Open A, 1, 2 on the A string. Slow again. So as the progression starts over again, lick number 8, we are looking at this. I'm looking at the minor pentatonic scale here. It would be the 5th position. But throwing a few major notes in there. Here's the lick. Over the E7 chord as the progression starts. So really just hitting 9 on the D string and hammering on to 11. And then hitting this E note on the 9th fret of the G string. And then 12, slight bend, back to 9. Again. And then a full bend on 12 of the G string, and then 10, 12 on the B string, slight bend on the 12, and then back to 9. This lick again. Sliding down and back to that 1st position. So we're still over the E7 chord. 2 on the D string, this E note, barring the G and B strings in the 2nd fret. Back to 2 on the D, then hammering on the open G to 1, and then open B and E strings. So lick number 9 is going back to the A7 with the same structure as lick number 8, but just varying some of these notes. Again, hammering on from 9 to 11 on the D, and then hitting that E note in the 9th fret of the G string. Now hit twice on 12, slight bend. Back to 9 on the G, and then sliding up, because we're on an A chord here, A7, so we're just sliding up to that 11 on the D string, which is a C sharp note, and then hitting 9 on the G. So far. and then a slight bend on 12 of the G, the B string 10 and 12, and then quick on the slight bend again on 12, 9 on the G. All together. This time we do it twice. Just looking at that E chord, but this second finger I really like to use, and just do it twice, barring in the G and B strings here in the second fret. Just back and forth, good practice. And then hammering on open G to the first fret, this G sharp note. Open B and E strings. Going to the B7 chord, really looking at the bar chord here of the B7 as I'm playing this lick, but sliding up on the G string to the 8th fret, and then 7 on the B string, and then walking down on the G string. 8, 7, 6. And then landing on that root note in the 9th fret of the D string. Really hugging that B7 chord there. And then next, we just walk down and do the same thing for A7. So sliding up to 6 this time on the G string, and then hitting 5 on the B string, and then walking down 6, 5, 4, and then we kind of finish it off with the same style. Slow again. So lick number 13 is a turnaround lick going from E7 to B7 before the progression starts again. A classic walk down here. So we're kind of keeping the same structure here. We're kind of using the G and E strings, 4th fret, alternating strings, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, and then hammer on like we did before, open G to 1, open B and E strings. Then using a B9 chord, 1 fret higher than the chord itself, and then back down. This B9 I'm using here, 2nd fret of the A string, 1st fret of the D string, 3rd fret of the G string, but we're barring on the 2nd fret here, G, B, and E strings. One more time slow. Just alternate. Once you get some speed, but do it slow till you get that down. So lick number 14 as the progression starts again, using some double stops here. So on the B and E strings, we have 12 and 10, and then alternate those two strings, starting with the B string. Then hitting 10 and 9, 8 and 7. And then landing on the root E, because we're still on the E7 chord here. And the second time we just do it a little different. Hitting it twice here with a slight bend on this 8th fret of the B string while holding the 7th fret here on the E string. But hitting that root again. So going back to the A7 chord, so 9 on the E string, 8 on the B string, 9 on the G string. With slight bend there on that 8th fret of the B string. 9, 7, 9. So the first time, again, a little quicker on the 9, 7, 9. And then we do a walk down here. 9, 7 on the G, then on the D string. 9, 8, 7, 6. Then lick 16 back to the E7 chord. Just a nice little lick. Lands on that E note there. So 7 on the D string, 4 on the G, 5 on the D string, slight bend before you go back to 9 on the A string. So we're walking down from the previous lick. And it just really locks in going back to that E7 chord. So lick 17, again, I'm looking at over the B7 chord, but I'm looking at the actual chord again, this B7 bar chord. So sliding up like we did on one of the previous turnarounds here. So sliding up to the 8th fret of the G string, and then hitting 7 on the B. Then 10 to 7 on the E, 9 to 7 on the B, and then 9 to 8 on the G string, and then 9 on the D string. Follows that chord really well. Same thing on the A7th. Sliding up to 6 this time on the G, and then hitting 5 on the B string. Hitting 8 to 5 on the E, 7, 5 on the B string, 7, 6 on the G string, and then hitting the A note here in the 7th fret of the D string. You can hear the chord there. So going back to the E7 chord now, lick 19. Three on the E string and then open. Slight bend. Then sliding up to 7 on the A string, which is the E note. And then on the D string, you'd be hitting 6, 7, 8, 9, ending up on the B note here, because we're back to, this is a little turnaround, so it's back to the B7 chord. E7 to B7. And then we're back to the beginning of the progression again. So lick number 20, back to the E7 chord again. Looking at this minor pentatonic scale here, classic in the 12th fret here that we know and love. So the first part of this lick would be right before the chord actually happens. So you hit that double stop right when you hit the E7 chord. So 14 on the A, 12, 14 on the D string, and then a double stop barring in the 12th fret of the G and B strings. Slight bend. Full bend on the B string here in the 15th fret. Trying to reach that E note there. Then walk down. Then 12 on the E, 15, 12 on the B string, 14, 12 on the G string, then bending a slight bend here, slight bend on 14 of the G, release, 12, back to 14, the root note on the D string. Again. And then we finish off with a similar thing we did down here, but we're doing it here, just hammering on from 12 to 13 on the G string, and then barring the B and E strings. This is a common theme that you can go to in between when you're going back to the E7 or in the middle of the E7 chord. You can use these moves. So this lick is kind of long. One more time here. So now we're going back to the A7 chord, lick number 21. So we're still looking at this E minor pentatonic scale here in the first position, but we're going to add a few major notes in here. So on the B string, 12 to 14, hammer on, and then hitting this E note, 12th fret of the E string, full bend on G, so full bend and release, hitting G, back to 12. So far. Then 15, 12. Then walking down. 12 on the E, 15, 12 on the B, 14, 12 on the G, back to the root note, 14th fret of the E string. I'm hitting that twice, actually, the root note. So lick 22 is a quick one because it's just going back to the E7 chord, but we're using that classic hammer on here and then sliding down. So we just take the G string, 12 to 13 hammer on, and then barring in the 12th fret the B and E strings, and then slide down. Or you can slide all the way up to that 13th fret. So lick 23 and 24 is the B7 to A7 walk down here. Slow. Then it's back to E. So 15 to 16 on the B string, sliding up to that 16th fret, hitting 14 on the E string, and then walking down 16, 15, 14, hitting the root note, 16th fret of the G string. Same structure for the A, but check this out. Now, the A7 structure for this walk down, you're going to slide from 13 to 14, hitting the E note here in the 12th fret of the E string. And then on the B string, 14, 13, 12, hitting the A note in the 14th fret of the G string. Slow. Because we're going back to the E. So we're doing like we did down here. But those are just common things we can do going back to that E7 chord. Really helpful to keep a flow going in your solo. So 14th fret of the D string is this E note. And then 14th fret of the G and B strings, you want to bar those. And hit them at the same time. So you do it twice. One. You kind of alternate. Then you do that hammer on 12 to 13. And then barring the B and E strings on the 12th fret. Slow. All together. So lick 25 is a turnaround lick from going from E7 to B7 before we go back to the progression again. Kind of starts out from barring on the 12th fret here on the B and E strings. A couple hits there to get into the groove with your right hand here. But we're just walking down using this E minor pentatonic scale. But you're landing on the B note because it's going to the B7 chord at that point. So important to hit that B note here. So we're walking down 12 on the E, 15, 12 on the B string, 14, 12 on the G string, 14, 12 on the D string, 14th fret of the A string is this B note. And then you're ready to start the progression again. So lick 26, some Stevie Ray Vaughan style double stops here, kind of just alternating on the G and B strings here. It's like 4 sets of double stops. The first one would be on the 4th fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B string. Starting on the G string, but alternating back and forth. The next set, let me just play it all at once. Sounds great over that E7 chord. It just kind of hugs the chord and creates this melody that walks up before you go to the A7 chord. So again, 4 and 3 here. All of these are on the G and B strings. The next one would be 6 and 5. The next one is 13 and 12. And the last one is 16, 15. So again, you're alternating, starting on the G string, back and forth. Slow. So lick 27 is going from the E chord, E7, to the A7. So we leave off here on this E7. Then we just go 2 frets up here. 18 on the G, 17 on the B string. And continue that alternating thing, that we did for the E7 chord. And then really start riding this 17th fret on the B string. It's an E note. And that then would be going back to the E7 chord. So again, we just go back and forth on the G and B, and then ride that E note for a couple hits here, and then we go up to the 19th fret, 19, 18, 17, which is an A note here on the E string, and then a full bend on 20 of the B string. And then 17 to 19 on the E, then 19 on the B string, like a pre-bend, and then back to 17 here for that E note on the B string. Slow. So lick 28 is back to the E7 chord. Just a walk down with a little variation here. So 12, 15, 12 on the B string. Again, 15, 12, so you repeat it. And then 14, 12 on the G, back to that root on the 14th fret of the E string. So licks 29 and 30, B7 to A7 chord. Again, a little Stevie Ray Vaughan influenced. So you're just using on the E string 12 to 14, hammering on 3 times. That's over the B chord. 12, 15, 12 on the B, full bend on 15. Then as it goes to the A chord, you're just walking down the minor pentatonic. 12, 15, 12 on the B, 14, 12, and then 14, 12, 14. Then lick 31, we're going to throw in an extra one here. This is a classic walk down from E7 to B7 before it goes to the progression again. So on the 12th fret of the D string, it's a D note, and then you're going to ride all the way down, you're going to ride this 12th fret E note here, and then alternate strings. When you do it fast, it kind of gains some momentum, and it really sounds thick and juicy, and it's a great lick. But to finish it off, you full bend on 15 of the B string, and then hitting that B note, and then before you go back to the E7th, you can just hit a simple double stop here and slight bend on G and B strings on the 12th fret, hitting that root note here,